Hey all, Mooch here. Hope everyone can hear me. I am firing up chat now just to check on that. We're recovering from our third nor'easter here. It wasn't too bad in New York though. Boston, woof. Okay, and I should probably turn on something other than the crappy lights that I have here. Hold on just a second. Okay, let's get wired up here a little bit. My apologies for that. It's been one of those days. And actually, it's been a lot of one of those days. But you guys can't hear me because I'm not wearing the mic. Okay, maybe now you can hear me say it's been one of those days, but there have been a lot of one of these days. Okay, I'm a little bright, but we'll deal with it. Has to recalibrate. Actually, does it work if I put my hand on? Darkens up and it goes light. Sorry, I'm a little bit washed out here. $3 reading glasses brought to bear. I would ask that, Keith Black, thank you very much for your donation. I appreciate that. What a wonderful start. I'd ask everybody to put battery Mooch in the front of any questions you have, because that makes it come out in red and it makes it very easy to find it. They separate questions from just chat going on, chatter to chatter, person to person inside chat. So if you could just put battery Mooch in the front, it makes it easier for me to find, especially if more people show up and things start roaring by. It gets pretty hard to track them. All right, where are we? Tim Taylor, thank you very much for your kind words. Robert Wyatt, Mr. Mooch, what happened to the video uploaded earlier? I'm going to repost it. There was some audio synchronization problems. There's a bug. And, okay, it's already scrolling too hard. I've got to go back in and find, I think I have workarounds for the audio sync issues. It comes and goes with LumaFusion. It's a known issue. Their workarounds didn't work, but I think if I insert a transition in every single cut, that it kind of resynchronized itself. I'll find out hopefully tonight and repost that. John Blanton, does heat from an 18650 while charging indicate increasing internal resistance? If you're charging at the same rate, let's say 1 amp, and over the months you feel it's getting hotter and hotter, a good sign that it's internal resistance, yes, or could be the charger just getting hotter too. Something's going maybe different or wrong with the charger. If it's getting hot in the mod, using at the same power levels and in the charger at the same charging rate over the months, then yes, it's probably the internal resistance. But the capacity usually drops before the internal resistance goes up. So you should be seeing crappy performance before you see increased heating. Mike in LA, what up? Magazine Art, Cyclic Scooby Flyer. That's a lot of syllables there. Your double E, still, thank you very much for your kind words. Josh Rhodes, Vaping Computer Guy. Gray screen, yes, I have stuff for my second Battery Basics for Vapers video already written up there, series versus parallel, and I didn't want it confusing everything, so I just covered it up with the my gray background, my gray foldable, the one you have to kind of go like this just to get it back into the pouch. Master Vapes, Mooch, what are your thoughts on using batteries harvested from I can't get away from this, from brand new, never used battery packs? I can't condone it because I don't know how good a job that person's done. If you're harvesting batteries, recovering batteries from a brand new battery pack, like the 2700 days everybody wants from Sanyos, and you're doing it for yourself, and you understand the risks, and you take the safety precautions you need to, then I have no problem with it. You're assuming the risks. But when you go online, you start selling that to other vapors, we don't know how good a job you're doing, and I can never say it's a good idea to buy those, because I don't know how good a job was done on those batteries. I mean, you're snapping off spot welds, you're sanding them smooth. They're hand done. So I just can't say, oh yes, it's a good idea. There's just too many unknowns. Robert White, yes, will be reposting it. Matthew Hughes, a little crazed, but I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking. Hussein, no question. Charles Templi, what got you interested in cells and batteries? Nerdless in cells or to the point vaping? Well, I had done a lot. I designed power management electronics, power electronics for my clients since the early 1990s. And a lot of that involved matching batteries to a battery protection system or testing batteries to see how long it might last in a particular application. So I was already doing some of that. And once I started vaping and saw the preposterous ratings on a lot of them, I just got really angry and I just started saying, hey, I want to start testing these. I had a lot of the gear. This expanded significantly the equipment I have to do more testing for vapors, but it was just kind of the slow path that just kept building up and up. Edward Ray, thank you for your kind words. Fjord Storm Gaming, my apologies. Starting to get into 18650 mech tubes, sticking with around a 0.3 build. Am I pretty safe with any of the big four batteries? Big four companies' batteries? Well, not necessarily, because some of those big four batteries are rated 5 amps. Samsung 22 and 26 series are 5.2 amps, I believe, are their continuous current ratings. So you still have to buy the right battery. In the description for this video, you'll find links to my blog at ECF, where you can find my ratings tables and look up big four batteries that match the current levels that you need. Run the Ohm's law equation for a 0.3 ohm build. You can also check out episode 2 of my Minding Your Ma YouTube series that deals with unregulated mods and has some recommended batteries and how to calculate how much current you're drawing for the builds you have. Ohio Killer 93, I bought AWT 2700s before you rate them. Are they safe to use? I don't know, I haven't tested them yet. They have a terrible reputation for their 18650s though. I need to have whiskey before I do these, I think. Or maybe I'm already doing too much whiskey. I need to think about things. I can't say they're safe to use. I haven't tested them. I would assume the ratings are exaggerated based on their 18650s, but I don't know. I don't even know what ratings they claim. Jason Campbell, will you be doing some t-shirts with logos? Good way to raise funds. I don't think it raises nearly as much money as people think. I think for hundreds of hours of work total, you can get $1 a shirt or something. So you need to sell 3 times as many as anyone will ever buy in order to just make a little bit of money. But it has been something I thought about. I just can't think of something I'd love to see on a shirt. I'm hoping something pops up because I think it's a good idea. Cameron Edgar, new studio area, raw air. I'll be doing a whole video on that and some thoughts around it, but which is why you won't see me vaping because equipment is running and it's right here now. But it's nice because I've taken 2 other testing areas, and my girlfriend heartily approves of this, combined it into here, then took a 3rd testing area, which she really hated because it's in the bedroom, and shrunk that down from a 6-foot bench down to a tiny area, just where I'm doing programming and microprocessors and debugging software development to support some product development and stuff. So a lot of it's in here. Essentially, I went a vertical instead of out horizontal, classic Manhattan style, but that'll be in the video. I'm sorry, Michael McMickens, $10. More plywood, maybe? Thank you very much for the donation. Yeah, it's plywood, and I'm not even going to say how many hundreds it costs because no one would believe it, but it's Manhattan, it was custom cut, and I'm just not good enough with a jigsaw to do I think it was 45 pieces total of lumber that I had cut to make this area, and another 20 I need at least, but there's little nooks and crannies and dividers, but thank you very much for the donation, that'll help. And Jerry Ray Edmondson, thank you very much for your donations. Very much appreciated. Thank you. And getting down, let's see. If I skip anyone's question, I apologize. Ask it again later on. I can't guarantee oh boy, guarantee I get to everybody's, but I'll sure try. Scott Champion, best battery for a punchy vape on a Pulse 22 box mod, VTC 5A, Sony. William Romero, hey, just thought that I would tell you that I watched the live vid that you were on with Phil and Dimitri. Well, I hope there was some decent information for you there, much more towards beginning vapors, and it was kind of talking to Phil and Dimitri, that was kind of the inspiration cemented thoughts I already had on starting an episode, a series of videos just for newer vapors or the ones transitioning from different vaping types. Keith Black, any idea when 6As will be available? None, zero. There are hints here and there, samples. It all depends on how many are taken up by their regular commercial customers. One's not. What's your opinion on lipo packs? The Turnigy, or is it Turnigy? I really don't know. Are decent packs. I've only tested a few, and that was a long time ago. The 1200 mAh class. The max amps was a disaster, but some of the bigger packs are better. Or the 1800 class I tested, 1800 mAh class. The 2800s and bigger ones were better cells. But they can be used fine. Just be aware of the increased volatility and the increased sensitivity to temperature, to overcurrent, to physical damage. But you get a return of fantastic performance from lipos. So you just have to weigh, I throw the water around, just have to weigh the pluses and minuses of all of them. James West, if you adjust resistance on the mod, does it affect the load on the batteries? Well, I think it depends on the mod. If you have a 0.2 build and you tell it, no, it's 0.25, and you ask it to give me 100 watts, it'll adjust its voltage to give you the current that gives it 100 watts at the coil. So that can affect it. But other ones may come and look back and self-adjust on the fly afterwards. So I don't know. But theoretically, yes, that would make a difference. You want, for a million reasons, the resistance that you enter into it to be accurate. Phil Lee, hello. Jason Yu, if I marry a 2700 to an 1860, will I get a 2650 battery offspring? I'll ask the DNA is incompatible, and it just doesn't work. But they may have a fun weekend in Vegas, so it's up to them. I'm open-minded for anything batteries want to try. It's really just none of my business, I think. And let them have fun. They're cooped up all the time inside mods. Lithium-ion has the Vapcell Golds in stock tomorrow. Yes, I've heard they have a small quantity available. I think it's a staged release of some of the Vapcell Golds. I don't remember. I believe it's the 2700A, the 3200 mAh version, not the recent 3100 mAh version. I believe they have the 2700As. They're close in performance, but the Sanyo rewraps will be a little bit better. I believe those are the ones that Lithium-ion wholesale have. Lee Nelson, why don't larger batteries have higher amp ratings if it's based on mass of the battery? Because it's not based on mass of the battery. The internal resistance of the battery determines a lot of its current rating, because the higher the resistance inside the battery, the more power is lost inside the battery. Increased mass could mean thicker electrodes, thicker metal, lower resistance, and a higher current rating. But it can also mean, and this is what most of them do, more battery goop. And the more goop you have, the more capacity the battery has, because you have more of the paste, the materials that can hold the lithium ions and transfer them back and forth. So typically a bigger battery means more capacity, which is the higher priority for 99% of the market, and not a higher current rating. Which is why 26650s until recently were so terrible, because those were energy cells, high capacity, low current rating, versus 18650s, which were power cells, high current rating, but lower capacity. Ryan Krause, thank you very much. Woo, Tang CL, is it safe to, no. I can answer your question now, I don't have to read the rest of it. Is it safe to revive a half-volt battery by the direct parallel charge? No. I don't know how dangerous it is, because I don't know the conditions of your batteries, but if a battery's dropped to 0.5 volts, it's screwed, it's dead. Anything below about 2 volts, 2.0 volts, roughly, additional degradation and decomposition starts happening inside the battery. It's not good. Now, some chemistries are much less susceptible to it, some are a little more susceptible to it, but we have to assume worst case. If you go below 2.5, bad things happen. Below 2.0, much more bad things can happen, and I can never, ever recommend or condone reviving a battery. I think it's a terrible feature for a charger to have. The Vapix, are Sony VTC5A still a go-to mech battery? Hell yeah. Yeah, they're still the #1 and my most recommended one. When VTC6As become more available, I'll retest them. I'll be doing the shootout again against the 4s, the 5As, any other batteries that are out there, and started picking the best. But the 5A is still a fantastic battery. And always remember, I've seen some interesting feedback, some interesting comments after doing the 6A test that I did recently, the shootout between the VTC 4A, 5A, and 6A. People were thinking, oh man, that means my 4s and my 5s and my 6s and my 5As are crap. No, they're just as good as they always were. It's just something a little better has come out. If you bought a car and it did 150 miles an hour, and a car came out that did 155 miles an hour, your car still does 150 miles an hour. It doesn't invalidate the whole concept of your previous purchase. It just means, as usual, there's a continuous slow evolution. Now, you can always just wait to buy batteries, but no matter when you buy a battery, some short time later, there's going to be something better. And a year down the road, you transition over to those. Because usually it's not some kind of evolutionary jump in terms of performance. Mooch branded mod? No, one's not. No. Clean AF coils. Can I buy you 1 or 2 of those 2700A batteries out of the packs to check out? I posted about this First Light this morning. Excuse me. No, thank you very much for the offer, but it wouldn't help for me to test any of these hand-harvested cells because you have to test every single one. Because it's the variability in having them hand-harvested that makes a lot of the unknowns. So I could test 2 or 20 or 200 of them, and still wouldn't matter because the next one coming out of the pack that this person did may have had the grinder go a little hard, or they may have pulled a little too hard, snapping off the spot welds. So it wouldn't help for me to test any of them. Hussein, Al-Bahadli? It would help if I had better vision to read this. I tried making the text bigger for old people like me, but it doesn't work in chat. Hussein, is voltage drop depends the mech mod material or the battery type? Yes. There's a voltage, what I call voltage sag, which is internal to the battery, and then there's voltage drop that happens throughout the mod, from the contacts to the threads to the body of the mod to the body of the atomizer, up to the posts, all the way to the coils. So external to the battery I call voltage drop, internal battery I call voltage sag. Those two add up to the total voltage drop that happens from the 4.2 volts until you get to the coils. LO254, thank you. Chris Shara, thank you. Mark Senior, thanks for your post on the tool battery 2700 removals and usage. Thank you. Let's see, scrolling down, how far behind? 708. Oh, I got to start doing this faster. Is there something, Justin Leeds, something see if I can put in the cell when I rewrap to prevent rust? WD-40. No, WD-40 is not a lubricant. It's a dissolver. It can leave lubricating film behind, but it has it's a very volatile oil. It evaporates. WD-40 eventually evaporates. It's a lousy lubricant and sealer. It's meant for degreasing, unseizing and things like that. Do not use WD-40 on a battery. It may degrade the seal at the top, causing a battery to vent. There are all kinds of things that can go wrong. If your battery is rusting, address what's causing the rust. Why is there all that moisture? Is there, e-liquid getting underneath the wrap and that's holding moisture there? Are you not rewrapping, taking off the ring and cleaning off underneath that so it doesn't get corroded and rusted underneath the ring from any moisture that gathers there? I would address the cause of the rust as opposed to trying to lubricate your batteries. Michael McMickens, thank you very much for that donation. More plywood. Oh, that's the one from there. I'm just catching up to it. Well, thanks anyway. Magazine Art, when making parallel battery mods, is there a way to avoid a short circuit when batteries are inserted incorrectly in series? Oh, and they end up being in series. You can, but you have to put a fuse. Before you join the two batteries in parallel, each one will get a fuse. So if you switch one, of course I have no batteries here, but let's say these are two batteries. Each one comes up and you join them down at the bottom. Well, coming out of the positive or the negatives, you'd put two fuses. So now if you flip one, that fuse blows, or the other fuse blows, or both blow. It's expensive, it takes up more room, and a lot of people don't want to do it. But that's how you protect against parallel mods where one of the batteries might be inserted reversed. Matthew Hughes, how long does 18650 batteries last before we buy new ones? When they start losing performance, it could be 3 months, it could be 3 years. I'm still going on the batteries I bought when I started vaping about 3 years ago. Yeah, I bought better performing ones since, but the other ones I'm still using just fine. VTC 4s and 25Rs were the first ones I'd gotten specifically for vaping. But when you start to see a loss of capacity, when they aren't running as long, this is where the newer generation of chargers, they've been around for a year, but that tell you how much capacity, how many milliampere hours you put back into the battery when you charge them. That doesn't tell you the capacity of the battery, but if you're always using them the same way, roughly day to day, and you see you're putting in 2,000 mAh, then 1,900, then 1,800, you start to see the capacity dropping, then you know the batteries are approaching the end of their life. But you'll probably just say, oh, these are performing like crap before that, and end up replacing them. Certainly, if they start getting hotter for no good reason, you're not using them any harder, replace them. And if the wraps are damaged, blah, 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 replace them or rewrap. Cyclist Scooby Flyer, you're looking forward to the new 6As. Oh, I've tested them. I like them. The initial tests were fantastic. I just had a shootout for the A variants, and it handily won over the 5A, and certainly the 4A, because the 4A is such low capacity. Looking forward to it. I don't know how much more I'm going to feel it when using a mech, but I'm interested in trying them out. I keep damaging the batteries that I have here, so I never have anything to vape with, and there are not enough of them to go around for me to get. And I certainly don't have the money to buy 6As and just vape with them. Greg, Trey, you should sell battery wraps. I've thought about it, but I just don't have the time and the grief and the hundreds of questions that you get and all that. And there's really no good material that isn't a lot thicker for a tough battery wrap. I would want a tough battery wrap, like polycarbonate or something, but they'd be expensive, and vapers don't like to spend extra money, and they'd be a lot thicker, and so a lot of vapers couldn't use them. So I just don't sell them. But in the back of my mind, it's still there. Bones, the SCADA battery wraps would be awesome. Jesse, hello. Cameron Edgar, single battery Mac VTC5A or iJoy 5 leg, around 0.15. You're a iJoy 5 leg to stay underneath the rating. You're above the ratings on a VTC5A there. But if you don't let the battery get hot, that's okay. You're at that's okay. You're under the temperature limited rating. 5A is going to hit a little harder than the iJoy, but if you're running to lower voltages, the iJoy's higher capacity will take over. If you like to vape down to 3.0, 3.1, which will bounce back up to like 3.3, 3.4, 3.3, 3.4 volts, then the iJoy may be better. Just because when the both come down in voltage, but the VTC5A, VTC5 may be a little bit higher, but the VTC5A is going to drop off sooner. So if you're really milking the last out of your batteries, the iJoy may be better. As I tell everybody, try both. See which one works better for the way you vape. Jag for a no. In a regulated mod, it will tell me when the battery is low and stop hitting, but in a mech, will it keep going past the save point? Yes. If so, when do I take it out to charge, and how do I know? Practice, practice, practice. A lot of times, eventually you'll just go, oh, this is a lousy vape. But what I recommend is, you take whatever, take 20 pulls, then take it out, put it in your charger, see what the voltage is. Or if you have a meter, take it, do that. Take another 20 pulls. Remember what the vape experience is. Don't change coils for any of this testing or do anything different. Keep the variables the same. And just measure the voltage every 20 pulls or something. Stay above 3.0 volts, certainly, but I think you'll find the vape to be pretty lousy way before you get to 3.0 volts. You can take it to 2.5, which is a terrible vape when you're starting at 4.2, which may drop down to like 3.7 when you're vaping or lower. But it's really experience and just using it over and over and checking the voltages. Labwork Vapes. Reach out to the woodworking community here on YouTube. They will help me out. For the plywood, or I'm sorry, didn't know what you were referring to. Once not. What's your opinion on using lipo packs? Thought I answered that one. Did I accidentally scroll back up? Robert Wyatt, which 2650 would you say is the best? Both of them, LG HG6 and the other one I forgot. Check my recommended batteries table. Justina Gloina, will you tell everyone to give this video a like for you, Jesse? Well, Jesse, they have to like it. I don't want to spend all the videos telling everybody, please subscribe, please like. I think if that I'm delivering what people want, it'll just pop in their heads. Oh, hell yeah, I want to subscribe to this. Or, yeah, I like this. And it's also important for me, actually, to get dislikes if they don't like it, because the dislikes are just as important to me to let me know what topics people didn't find interesting. And that's just as important as topics they do find interesting, because by leaving out the topics they don't find interesting, I can get more likes and subscribers and deliver more content that people will find interesting and watch, because otherwise I'm wasting my time and the community's time. But thank you. Jared Garrett, how do you keep from going insane from the thousands of questions you get every day? What has made you think that I'm not insane? Dark ER3, how did you get into batteries and electronics? I was born a poor electrical engineer. No, it's bad Steve Martin from a very weird movie. Badly done. I had a background as a power management designer since the early 1990s, and batteries are part of it, and it just became a natural outgrowth of my outrage at the bad ratings on batteries. Fjordstorm Gaming, seeing a lot of VRK batteries. Yes, they're probably rewraps. I haven't tested them. I don't know what they are. Actually, no, they could be China cells, or they could have an agreement with a China factory. I just don't know anything about them. It's like a Scooby Flyer. Is the INA 226 a good current sensor? If it meets your needs, yes. The 219, 226, it depends if you need unidirectional, bidirectional. Do you want contactless? Do you want an integrated current sensor? Do you want to use an external one? What are your accuracy requirements? You know, if you go to an external current sense resistor, is 1% okay, or are you going to spend $5 on a 0.1%? So a lot of it just depends on what your needs are, what your common mode voltage range is, the high and low side sensing. Do you want a Hall effect sensing for isolation? So it really depends what your application is. And for everybody else, yeah, I know that didn't make sense. Tyler Crow, I've noticed on my older VTC 4s and 5s, the spots. Rust, or e-liquid, or other crap. Yes, yes, or yes. I just don't know. It doesn't happen to mine. I was able to get it by really roughly handling a bunch of VTCs. So with a little bit of abrasions, tiny pinholes, and things like that. And just the sweat and body oil and just a thin film of e-liquid on my hands. You know, I took like one drop, just did this. So it just felt a little, not sticky, but you knew you had a little bit on your hands. And I just started handling batteries, came back the next day, and I had a whole bunch of spots. But it requires abrasion of the wrap. I just don't know what's causing it. It's not condensation, because the batteries, they get warm. They're not going to stay wet under there. It could be leftover sizing fluid deposits from when they draw out the can, because they use a disc of steel, and they squeeze that disc up into a can. So they have a lubricant there that stays on the outside of the battery. A lot of times when I unwrap them, I have to clean with alcohol because it just stinks. I can smell the oil. So that may be oxidizing. That may be, especially if it's a little bit warm, it'll speed up the oxidation. Sometimes it's e-liquid. If it's not happening from the ends, then I'd say it's sizing fluid, lubricant, or aliens. That's always going to be my excuse when I don't know. Lee Williams, thank you for your kind words. Sifu Mustache, thank you very much. The Vapix, how do I dispose of a battery safely? Tape over the positive end, a couple layers of tape, and bring it to don't throw it away, bring it to a Lowe's, if I'm assuming you're in the United States, into a home improvement store or big electronics chains. They have battery recycling bins. If you're in a smaller municipality without one of these big chain stores, you can call the local municipality, Chamber of Commerce, or somebody, 311 if that service is available, and ask where's their battery recycling area where you can, you may just have a recycling area for your town, and they handle the refrigerators and the air conditioners and everything, and they should have a battery recycling bin there. Just tape over the ends, the positive ends, so nothing can happen there. The Simple Vapor, when 18650 start to wear down and not hold a very long charge, are they considered unsafe to use? Not inherently unsafe, but their current rating, because of that, they are going to heat up more. They're not going to perform your way you want to. So if you keep forcing them to do things you're not able to do anymore, that can be unsafe. But inherently, there's not an increased danger inside the battery. You know, let's say they're heating up more and you can only call them a 15 amp battery. Well, if you use them at 15 amps, they're just as safe as they were when they were maybe a 20 amp battery. But certainly, if you're starting to see reduced performance, replace them. Why compromise? Batteries are dirt cheap. I know everyone says, oh, they cost a fortune, da 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 da. Think how much you spend on juice. batteries last a year or two. You know what you spend on cotton in a year or two? You know, pair of $5 batteries, you're spending more than $10 in 2 years on cotton. And certainly more on coils and juice and everything else. So, unless you're getting like 5,000, Japanese cotton pads at once for no money. But just don't try to take them to a point where you're going, I don't know, safe or not. If you got to a point where you're wondering if it's safe or not, whatever, all the other grief we have to deal with in life, why have to deal with thinking about whether our batteries are still safe or not? Just replace them, just recycle them. Those are my thoughts. See if I can speed this up. Battery Mooch, is Fogstar a reliable vendor? I'm hearing good things about them. I'd say that's a great post for the UK forums, only because it's a UK battery vendor, but so far I'm hearing good things about them. Ohio Killer 93, how hot can a 2700 get before running into problems? Well, certainly for me, around 60 degrees Celsius, well, over 45 degrees Celsius, what we feel is just a little warm. And yes, I know for the Americans, they're like, Celsius, what? But in the engineering world, we use Celsius, and I just don't know the Fahrenheit numbers, but I'll give you equivalents. Just a little bit warm, batteries start aging faster. At around 60 Celsius, 65, which becomes really uncomfortable and maybe too hot to hold, by putting it in your fist for 30 seconds, that's where you should never get hotter than. Because much hotter than that, exothermic reactions start in the battery around 75 C. And that's where you can start getting a lot of trouble if you go any further. Just don't let them get hot. Pretty well, whatever your definition of hot is, don't let them get there. If you can't hold on to it for 30 seconds, stop. That's way too hot. Even if you're not dressed in the safety aspect, it's really accelerating the aging of your battery. Cameron, Edgar, any word on Sony coming out with 21700, 2700? Not yet. But so many things, if they release something now, we may not see it for 2 years because the first 2 years of production may be bought up by Dyson or Tesla or who knows who, another car manufacturer, BMW or Porsche might say, whoa, we want your production run for 2 years. So anything you see announced, who knows when we get it? It has to appear in the secondary market for us. Excess inventory and things like that. Paul Bancroft, thank you for keeping us all safe. Love your work, buddy. Thank you very much. James West, do you get tired of seeing the word safe in questions? It's starting to wear on me because nothing we do is safe. There's risk everywhere. But I understand what it is, and it's something we all want. We just want to be safe, man. I just want to vape, man. So, we just want to say it. And it's a real easy way of packing 3 paragraphs worth of safety-related stuff in to go, is it safe? But as long as we all recognize that as soon as we start using batteries not meant to be used outside of a protected battery pack, that we're not safe, that there's risk in it, and serious risk of bodily injury or property damage if we misuse and mishandle these batteries. These are powerful frickin' batteries. So it's never safe. All we can do is minimize the risks. It's no different than using a power tool or a car. We would never say a circular saw is safe, but we can minimize the risks. Same with a car. It's never safe getting into a car, but properly maintain it, driving defensively, we can minimize the risk. And it's the same thing with batteries. Thousands of vapers every single day use batteries for years without any incidents. Thus endeth my baby rant. Okay, scrolling down, where are we? 727. Okay, starting to catch up. Josh Z, have you found a good 21700 for mech mods yet? Did I just do... Things really start to blur. I've done a surge this past 2 weeks. I wanted to see what I could get done. You may have seen that EH Pro testing every single day. Check my ratings table. I don't remember if it was a 2700 that I just did or a 21700 that I went, oh, wow, that's pretty good. But check the ratings table and see if I did something, it came out relatively recently. 69 Camaro SS407. I subbed instantly and like your videos before I watch them. Well, thank you. Hopefully if you hate them, let me know once you watch them. And hit some dislikes and stuff. Let me know. Or in the comments, which are invaluable. Everybody, please. Don't leave questions you want answered now down in the comments, because I can't do them because my head's going to explode. I get 200 questions a day otherwise. Any questions you leave for me in the comments, I'll consider topics you'd like to see covered in future ones. But certainly any feedback you have, good or bad, that's all good for me, because it helps guide what I do. Because otherwise I'm wasting your time and mine. David Mottram, building coils to 4.2 is best practice. What does he actually draw from the battery-wise? 3.7 is closer. Check out episode 2 of my Minding Your Ma series in my YouTube channel here. It addresses that very topic. When to use 4.2, when to use 3.7. But 3.7 does get you closer to the actual. 4.2 gives you a little bit of a safety margin, which is especially important on lower resistance coils where the tolerance on a resistance meter can mean a whole lot more. You know, a few percent tolerance on the meter, a few percent on the coil can mean a bigger difference in current that's flowing and a difference to your battery. Sub-vapes. I had a couple of 18650s and a Daedalus, and I ran them down to virtually no charge. One of them is not registering at all now. Is there any way to reinvigorate it? No. Yes, technically there might be, but that cell's damaged. Don't. Just don't. Lesson learned, replace both. If the other one's still working, you use that in a flashlight or a single battery mod if you're sure it hasn't gone down below 2.5 volts. But if the other one has, it went down to a low voltage for a reason. And if it's that different in a voltage from the other one, that sounds like a battery is already on the way out or is damaged or something is wrong or it wasn't a matched set to begin with. Not matched, a married pair. Jason Campbell, what you're currently vaping on? Like I used the term there, haha. Actually, thank you for mentioning that because I'm too dense to have gotten it. Well, right here is what I was vaping on. I have an Iconic on top of the Machina that I've been using a lot this week. I just like the look of it. I like that it's tiny, a VTC5A inside, 0.17 dual stainless steel Claptons from Yeti wire, and some Paradigm juices. Thank you, Scott Zegans. Thank you, sir, for letting me try those juices. And I've been kind of bouncing around. But I like variety a lot. A Goon 1.5 on a Minikin V2 that I'm enjoying with the same fused Claptons. And then, what else was I playing with? I don't remember. My brain is so fried. Cyclic Scooby Flyer. My pleasure. Dinosaur. That's a cool name. Have you thought of selling your recommended batteries? No. I will never, ever get in the battery business. Brutal. Thousands of questions. No one's going to pay extra money. The amount of testing that I have to do, hundreds of batteries are tested. I'd have to have banks and banks of battery testers to be able to say, oh, yes, it's definitely good. The crap and bullshit I'd be getting from China vendors trying to rip me off. I'm not slamming all of them, but inevitably I'd be running into some of them. It's not worth it. I'd have to sell them for $50 a battery. And I might as well hand roll them and stuff them into cans myself for that price. Troy Mausoff. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. I bet you it's very cool when you say it. It's such a breath of fresh air listening to someone who owns the industry that they work in. Mooch, you're a rock star. Thanks for your time. I'm not good on stage and I can't play a guitar, but I'll take the rock star compliment anyway. Thank you. But, I guess that's a fantasy for every 10-year-old boy. Well, after you get out of the fireman stage, you want to go to the rock star stage because now you're thinking, girls, and you think that gets girls. What kind of rewrap batteries are the eFest batteries? Round ones. Oh, you mean Samsung's or Sony's or whatever? You'll have to check my test reports. They use LG's, and they use Samsung's and LG's. I don't remember if they use Sony's, if they have any of the VTCs, but they're all over the place. You'd have to check my test reports for the individual batteries. You can go to my blog at ECF. The link is in the description. Go to my master list of test reports, scroll down alphabetically by battery size, and find the batteries you're interested in. Justina Gloina, I was rewrapping batteries for a friend and noticed the batteries weren't the same. Does my friend still use them like married batteries? I don't know. If they're not the same battery, they shouldn't be used as a married pair. One could be 1,500 mile, the other could be 3,000. We have enough issues to use different batteries as a married set. Don't let your friend do that. Salamanda, do you need to take the shop shelf life into consideration of the shop shelf life into consideration of cell life? Yes, you can. Battery Bro Dispose.com has a date lookup tool. You can see when your battery was manufactured. That could be anywhere from 3 months to 2 years ago, depending how long they've been sitting in stock. But if it's performing well to you, it's really not too much to be worried about. As long as the battery isn't getting hot, as long as it's still performing okay for you, not too much. You know, I wouldn't want a battery that's 2 years old when I first got it, but it's not inherently a disaster. The shelf life can be, it all depends on how badly you abuse it. The overall life that you get out of it depends how badly you abuse it. You might get 5 more years out of it, or you might get 5 months out of it. Excuse me. B-Trip. Voltaplex.com says they will have 30 Ts in 2,700 days. What's the likelihood that this company got genuine cells? We've been waiting, frankly, long enough. Maybe they're finally shipping them. It seems that lithium-ion-wholesale.com would have them first. Lithium-ion Wholesale's trusted, fantastic vendor to get your cells from. John is amazing. He cares about what he sells. He's got testing equipment. He's got his hands in some good places to get quantities of rare batteries that we want. But if someone comes along and says, we'll buy 20,000 batteries, that can get priority over other vendors. So I don't know. You wouldn't believe the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. It just makes you want to cry. So I don't know. They might have genuine, they might not. If someone has a pair of each that they get from Voltaplex, preferably 2 different people ordering at different times, and not telling them that I'm testing them because we don't want any cherry picking, I'd be happy to test them and see if they're genuine. But otherwise, I just don't know. We'll probably have to wait a few months to see as other people get them and report and maybe get me samples and I can test them. But it's about my initial rumors that I got towards the end of last year said spring into summer for the 30T and 40T, Samsung 50G, Samsung 20S, a lot of these other batteries that we've been waiting for. Dennis Jimenez, does the voltage upstepper in a regulated box mod need extra battery current? Yes. Check out episode 3 of Minding Your Moz on my YouTube channel. It's about regulated devices. But essentially, if you've got 100 watts, if you've got 100, your battery's sitting, let's say 4.2 volts, you always have a fixed 100 watts, and you draw some amount of current, and that voltage and that current makes for 100 watts into the regulator. You need a little bit more because the regulator wastes some as heat, and it spits it out to the coil. Well, if the battery voltage drops, then the current has to go up to compensate to still get you 100 watts, which is why we calculate battery current when the battery's at its lowest voltage for the regulated mod, around 3.2 volts typically, because that's when the current is at its highest. And yes, so make sure I'm answering your question properly. So yeah, as the battery voltage drops and it has to step up the voltage. Now, inherently in stepping up the voltage, you don't need extra current just inherent in that process, but in order to make the wattage, you do. So it really depends on the numbers and how much you're drawing. That may not have made sense, but I hope it does. Check out the video. Magazine Art. Can married batteries have a few affairs and still remain married, or is divorce recommended? Because I don't know what happens when those get split up, I have to err on the side of caution and say never split up a married set, because I don't know the condition of any person's particular batteries. I don't know what kind of abuse they may be getting into or not getting into. So I'm forced to err on the side of caution and say, do not split up a married set to use them singly, even if you rotate. And that's a change from what I used to say a couple of years ago. But I realized just how badly some people are abusing the batteries, and I have to take that into account, unfortunately, for something I say to the entire community. So no affairs. I can't say that's okay. Michael D. What's up, Mooch? Greeting from Ireland again. Hello. I'm sure you say Michael D much better than I do, though. Cameron Edgar, is what your volts are at on a regulated device matter for battery life? No, it's your power setting. That's what determines battery life, because only your power setting, not the coil resistance, not the coil voltage, only the power setting determines how much current you draw from the battery, and which determines how long the battery lasts, which determines, well, its running time and its overall life, charge and discharge cycles. Subvapes, thanks for answering. Thanks for your great work. Thank you. Tim Coleman, tell everyone to check the voltages on their charges. You've saved my life. Well, I'm glad. Did you have one of those 4.35 volt chargers? And it's not, folks, if you make sure your charger, if it can do 4.35 volts, make sure it's set to 4.2. 4.35 volts is astoundingly abusive to our batteries. Will it guarantee they explode? No. But even 4.2 volts is a little abusive compared to like 4.1 or 4. But it's a compromise between capacity, how much you'll be able to put into it in running time, and abuse of the battery. It's always better to charge a 4.1, but that's not an option for most chargers. So just make sure you're not charging at 4.35 volts. There are some lithium-ion batteries that you can charge at 4.35. Some of them called HV batteries. And some lipos, some round ones. Don't buy them, don't use them, don't charge anything to 4.35 volts. VDAR55, I buy hand-rolled batteries from Battery Mooch. Yeah, but that's like sheesh. And we do it outside. We don't share that information here. Josh Cook, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on the potential for LiFePO4, LFP, or lithium ferrous phosphate chemistry cells in vaping. I did a big post about that in my test of the A123 26650s, which are astounding, maybe the best performing batteries we could possibly use. But LiFePO4, or lithium ferrous phosphate, I call them LFP, cells have a nominal voltage of 3.2, 3.3 volts versus the 3.6, 3.7. So they're lithium-ion batteries. It's the most stable of chemistries. They don't catch fire when they go into thermal runaway. It's the gentlest. It's not great, but it's still the gentlest of all the reactions that can happen. There are all these good things about them, but they are lower capacity, and they run at a lower voltage. Under high load, you're down at around 2.7 volts. So they have to be used in series. The outside of the battery is positive, not negative, at least for the A123 2650, and there's some other issues. So you can't use it in a regulated device. They'll just say low battery too quickly. You have to use them in series on a Mac, and you have to take into account machined contacts. So if it's not absolutely flat, you're getting terrible contact on a knife edge. So there are a lot of disadvantages to these cells, but there are a lot of advantages too. But right now, it certainly is a general purpose thing. LFP chemistry cells just aren't worth using for vaping. Scott Champion, if you were a battery, which battery would you be? Oh, one of my hand-rolled ones. Because I can't think of anything better to say right now. If I was a battery, what battery I want to be? I'd just be so disappointed if I was a battery. Battery Mooch, Ingo Schroeder. Big thanks for all you're doing for the community here in Australia. Been off tobacco and vaping for 5 years. Awesome. Congratulations. Still learned a lot from you. Thanks a lot, mate. Thank you, and congratulations, and hoping you get many, many more years enjoying vaping. Or not smoking, at least. L. Ashton, what do you recommend using to replace insulators when rewrapping batteries? Buy more insulators. Batrat.com, IMR batteries, a lot of places have insulators. In a real pinch, you can use, any plastic that you can cut into shape. I don't recommend cardboard because e-liquid goes into it. I'd say just put the batteries on the side, use your spare batteries until you can get some top ring insulators in. Never, ever use a battery without a top ring insulator and the wraps over it in perfect condition. That's just way too dangerous. It's too easy to pull back the wrap, and without that insulator, instant short circuit. When it's just inserting it and removing it from a mod or a charger. Ace, with a long number afterwards. My two most respected people in one place, DJ LSB Vapes and the great Battery Mooch. Well, I don't know about great, but you must be talking to my girlfriend again. Daniel, what's up? And thank you for your kind words, Ace. Matt, Saturday, I saw that Tesla came out with a new 2700 for the packs. Will these be available for vaping? Maybe in 2 years. You know, remember, when something's released, we don't have any option to purchase it. These batteries get released, it's a promotion, usually 100 and something percent. All of the production is already allotted for something. It's rare that any kind of excess inventory will exist. A year, 2 years down the road, somebody will only use 90,000 of 100,000 they ordered. They'll auction off or sell off those 10,000 batteries. It'll reach somebody to someone else, and one of our distributors will be able to get a bunch of them, and we'll be able to start vaping with them. But that could be 2 years further down the road. It happened with the VTC5As, and now it's happening with everything else. So eventually, yeah, it might, but it could be a very long time before we see them. John B., what chargers do you know of that you can set the voltage on? The LiPo hobby chargers that the RC folks use, they do it. But then you need a rig to set, to hold the battery, a mounting jig to hold the battery. You have to make something up there, salvage an old mod or something like that. I don't know much about the existing vaping-oriented, or the chargers targeted for vapors, whether like the Sky RC or the Opus or those let you set the charging voltage. But that'd be a good one for your favorite Facebook or other forums, because these are the people using those chargers. I use primarily power supplies and 3 Luke V4s, so I can set the voltage and current to anything I need on the power supplies, at least for my charging. But I don't know which chargers let you set, for example, 4.1 volts. Jared Garrett, what type of wicking do you use? Just Kogendo pads, massive pile, and so cotton, peel off the outside, still playing around with, jam it in with a, toothpick kind of tight to loose to playing around. I think I'm sort of in the middle. Ivan Stoyanovich, did I even come close? Can I clean a battery with alcohol after removing the wrap? Absolutely. That's a fantastic way. Don't douse it with alcohol. You don't dip in alcohol and shake it, but slightly damp paper towel or tissue, and just kind of wipe it off, get off all the oils, any e-liquid or anything like that, let it dry thoroughly, and then put on your insulator and rewrap. DJ LSB Vapes, XSA Vapes on snow, yes, not on ice. Peter M, when I charge my married batteries on the mom meter, one is always 15 to 20 milliamps lower than the other around the time they got 4 volts. Is this a problem? 15 to 20 milliamp hour? No, that's a pretty damn good match. You're getting up to 100 milliamp hours difference or something once they reach fully charged. And also, because of the internal resistances differences in the battery, every single battery is a different capacity. If you buy 5 Samsung 25Rs, there might be a 25 mAh spread between them. As they age, that spread will get bigger and bigger, which is one reason why we marry them and use them together, to try to keep that spread in capacities from going any bigger than it normally would due to the normal differences from one battery to the next. I wouldn't worry about 15 to 20 mAh difference. If you start to see it to go to 30 mAh, 50 mAh, 100 mAh, then that battery's on the way out, or the other battery's on the way out. Jay Hayes, what's up, dude? Dongju graphene battery, thoughts? It's not graphene. There may be graphene in it, but as I understand it, no one is using a true graphene anode material yet, namely 100% graphene. They may have some graphene mixed in, but as far as I know, it's still a graphite anode, but I haven't seen their advertisements or their claims yet to know for sure, but I don't think that's a true graphene one. I think it would be mind-bogglingly expensive. I think it's like Turnigy, what they did, they just added some graphene to a graphite anode chemistry battery and called it a graphene one for marketing purposes as opposed to true technical purposes. But again, you can have a very poor performing graphene, even if you have a true graphene cell, the cathode material and everything else has to match the capabilities of what the graphene could deliver. So it can still be a crappy cell if it's true graphene. But I'll check. Actually, I'm interested if someone's claiming a true graphene cell. Thank you for letting me know at least they exist. Wild Will 53, just curious, do you ever plan on making a video explaining the circuitry in a tube mech? No circuitry in a tube mech. Do you mean like the voltage drops and stuff like that through a mechanical mod where voltage drops happen? Or circuitry in a tube device like the SMOC X8 or V8 stick, or the Inakin and some others, regulated sticks? Jay Hayes, yeah, I heard the same thing. Yeah, they just said something on their Twitter last week. Jay, I'll check that. I want to try to do some more lipo testing, because it's been, is it 2 years? Or a year and a half since I've done some, just see what the new generation of batteries had, because the last batch I tested, wow, there's some disastrous ratings there. Joshua Bardwell just bought his channel, a good RC, he's just bought a $4,000 battery testing rig and some great capabilities on it. He's doing some good testing of lipos. He just started, and you could check his channel for some lipo testing too. Now he's doing it for the quadcopter flyers, but you can still see what he's got going. Zachariah Lewis, are there any high amp 18350s out there? I just don't know. It's been too long since I tested them. I want to retest them this spring. I put in a request for time with the authorities. Whoever can get me some time. And I hope to retest a bunch and put some up there and get some on the recommended batteries table. For right now, I just don't know. Okay, we just have a few minutes left. Rajan Sagu, sometimes my battery charger shows varying internal resistances up to 1 ohm. Usually bring it down to 25-ish. Should I change charger? No, they're just terrible at reading internal resistance. I've yet to see a charger that can do it well. When you put it in, spin it a couple of times, take a measurement, take it out, put it in, spin it a couple of times, because you need to get rid of the oxide layers. Try it on every single slot until you get an idea. But a good performing battery should be in the, it depends whether it's DC or AC internal resistance. I don't know which one you charge it does, but for AC internal resistance, 15 to 20 milliohms. For DC internal resistance, 20 to 25 milliohms for a good 20 amp battery, or 15 plus amp battery. If you're reading 70 or 100, actually, if you always read 70 for one battery, that's okay, because it doesn't, the incorrect offset is okay if it's always consistent, because now you just know, it's 50 milliohms too high, and you can just see if it's growing over time and get an idea when the battery has to be replaced. So an offset is okay, but consistency is very important. But they'll all be bad. Pipapo, what is happening when I completely discharge my battery due to using it in a mech mod? What's happening is damage to the battery and you buying new batteries, because now you shouldn't be using those anymore. If you brought them down to 2.5 volts or higher, that's okay. Just charge them up. And typically you'll have a lousy vape way above that in terms of voltage. But if you're down under 2 volts or so, don't use that battery anymore. It's just lesson learned. You just can't drain them to death. Do I have a PhD? No, I do not. There's actually very little taught. You learn very little in college. College really just weeds out the people who don't have the mindset and the desire to spend the years in that field in business learning what they need to know. In college, I learned very little that I use now in anything. It's all self-taught, in the over 20-something years since then. Craig, 73, a bunch of numbers. Have you tested Imran batteries? Yes, check my battery ratings tables. Go to my blog at ECF, link in the description. Malavodija, have you heard of carbon-based battery developed by some student maybe 2 years ago? Some development of that? I don't know. There are new battery developments literally every single day. Dozens of announcements every single day. But the process of commercialization is brutal. And only 1 out of 100 will make it even the first step. And then out of those 100, 1 out of 100 will make it into our batteries sometime down the road. The stuff you're seeing from Tesla is stuff that was in the lab 5-10 years ago. So, maybe now our batteries, well, we have carbon negative parts of our battery are already carbon, it's graphite. So I don't know which particular aspect of carbon battery you're talking about, but air batteries, sulfur batteries, zinc, air, and all these other batteries that are out there just haven't made it yet. Maybe in a few years it'll make it a commercial market, and maybe a couple years after that down into something we can use. But certainly anything we see now as an announcement, we should consider something we won't see for years. Walter Poblet or Poblet, on the inside, the mines with J. Hayes and the vaping bogan. Oh, me. Sub-vapes. Is it okay to charge a single 1860 through mod's USB? It depends entirely on the mod. I don't know which ones have good USB charging and which don't. I'll always recommend external charging. In a pinch, okay, if the mod is all right and in good condition, and the USB connector is okay, and you have a good charging block and a decent cable, and your battery's in good condition. So you see, I really can't answer that. I always recommend external charging because it's faster. You can monitor the temperature of the battery. With the chargers we have now, you can see how much mile you're putting in, and there's all these reasons why external charging is better. But I know that can be very inconvenient for a lot of people, but I just can't say it's safe because I don't know the mod and the condition of the battery, etc. Cameron Edgar, I put batteries in my mod. When I slide them in, it sparked. It hasn't done it since. Should I be checking to make sure it doesn't happen again? Well, yeah, every single time. Make sure your wraps and top ring insulator are in perfect condition. If anything weird is happening in your mod, don't use it. There are capacitors in your mod in the regulator circuit board, that when you put your battery in, the capacitors take a huge inrush of current that get charged up. That may be the spark, or that spark was a short circuit and you're really playing with fire. So check your top ring insulator, check your wraps. If you put them in, take them out, put them in again, it doesn't spark. Maybe it's the capacitors, but it sparks every time. That's a short circuit, or your mod's, something's wrong with the mod, but not enough information for me to say. All right, 5 minutes more. Mark Stave, any chance of a video detailing the different charges and how to use the features? I hope to be able to do charges, but it's time. Right now I'm completely and utterly overwhelmed, way past the breaking point. You know, especially with this surge I tried in the last 2 weeks. I took off work. I wanted to see what I could do doing this full time, and it's just woo-wee. I hope to, but I don't know when or how. Sanchez, what happens if I keep charging my batteries at 50%? Nothing. They love you for that. Batteries don't like lithium-ion batteries. Don't go all the way down and come back up if you can avoid it. If you have to, do it. It's better just to do this more often. They prefer what's called a shallow discharge more than they prefer going all the way down and back up. You don't have to do that to condition them like you do NiCads and nickel metal hydrides we used to use years ago, or for different things. Michael Cunningham, do your battery recommendations for regulated mods stay the same when you're using the mods in temperature mode? Yeah, good batteries are good battery. It's application independent. The ratings, the capacities, all that, they don't care how you're using it, where you use it, which is a great thing about ratings. It doesn't matter. Wild Will 53, no sir, I should have said the path the current takes from the battery to the analyzer back to the battery. Oh, so just your reference to the mech mods? Yes, well, some of this equipment I purchased, including a micro ohm meter, namely I can measure down to a millionth of an ohm, which is the problem because you can go on a mod and I can see the resistance change. So the things you have to take into account when you're testing those kind of levels, but I'd like to start testing things like resistance of threads and what happens when brass oxidizes, how much does that really affect voltage drops and stuff like that. And I have the equipment to be able to do that. We'll see about time and is the community at all interested in that stuff. Jim Thompson, safest charger? Don't know. I just haven't tested them. 2 amp charging generally okay for the 18650s. It's a little hard on them. I have a charging rates table. Check my description for my blog at ECF. Get my charging rate tables, all the big 4 batteries. I list the, from the manufacturer, their standard and fast or rapid charge rate, and then what I recommend for the longest possible life. Apocalypse Survivor, what is the standard deviation varying length of 18650s? I haven't measured them enough because I haven't had enough problems problem reports come in to go measuring the length, but I'd say, you know, within 0.5 millimeter, but I'd say you got to get your hands on a bunch of 18650s and start to see, particularly the ones coming out of China. I don't know what their tolerances are. OhmTech OhmLife batteries, being retested soon. That was from Derek R. Scott Bogfoot, yo, have you ever built a Baghdad battery? In school. Billions and billions of years ago, we did. And, you know, he did the lemon batteries and all kinds of other, you know, and then we did the zinc and what was it, zinc and copper and mild acid batteries and stuff like that. But very long time ago, I found it's inconvenient to vape when I'm holding a Baghdad battery and vaping a 12 ohm coil. Cameron, sorry, I was trying to ask, what should I be checking to make sure it doesn't happen again? I don't remember what your question was. Okay, let's call these questions. Let's cut it off where it is. I'll answer these last 3 questions. Raymond Chan, what batteries are you currently testing? I am on, let's see, Black Cell, I think is next in the queue. Everything was just being moved into here, so I'm actually posting previous results, but the next things up are the Black Cells and I don't remember. That's how crazy it's been. Level 5 Loki, Marvel or DC? That's a tequila night discussion. Battery Mooch, Pipapo, to specify the intention of my former question, what would happen when I completely discharge the battery? Can it be harmful to you? Only if it gets hot enough to vent. And we'll cut off the questions, that's it. You can damage the battery going below 2.5 volts, much below 2.5 volts, so I don't recommend it. I don't know what you mean by completely, When a regulated mod says completely discharged, that's okay. That's over 3 volts. That's normal. Vape it down to 0% on any regulated mod, no problem whatsoever. But in a mech, if you're saying you'd bring it down to like 0 volts, which makes for a crappy vape, then yeah, that can damage the battery. Now, if the battery's not getting hot, odds are it's not going to vent on you. I don't think it's going to go into thermal runaway and explode, but it's definitely not good for the battery. And we are done. Take off my cheapy $3 reading glasses, find a way to get the bridge of my nose back. I'm going to run. I want to say thank you, everybody, for your questions. There were some wonderful ones. Thank you for your support, your donations, and that was awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you to all the celebs that showed up tonight, Jay Hayes and Daniel, anyone else I missed. Thank you for visiting. That means a lot to me also. But also regular vapors that find a battery nerd talking about anything to be interesting is wonderful to me, and I really appreciate your point, and thank you. And I will be, this seems to be a regular thing now, every 2 weeks, so I hope to continue that. If you're not getting the announcements for it, which typically happen, at least I set it to appear 2 days ahead of time, make sure when you subscribe, you click the bell icon next to the red subscribe text underneath the videos, and that should get you the notification or the announcement. So thank you very much for coming by, and I've got to go the other side because this thing duct taped to a box, duct taped to a ladder, requires me to go the other side to end this. And have a great evening, everybody. Thank you for watching.